Good afternoon. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. Thank you for joining us today for our advisor forum, The Fundamentals of Student Success, Strategies for Addressing Students' Basic Needs. As always, please enter your name and your department in the chat feature if you wish to receive credit for today's session. And you are welcome to use the chat feature for any questions that you have throughout today's advisor forum. With that being said, I will now turn it over to Kim Stagner, who is facilitating our discussion today. Kim.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Kim Stagner, and I'm the coordinator of Student Success Initiatives in the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. So today's advising forum actually came about through the Provost Academic Advising Council. In this council, we do have different subcommittees where we come together and just try to address certain advising concerns across campus. So I, along with a few members, work on a subcommittee which addresses removing barriers for students. And when we got together, we kind of found that sometimes there's barriers that are really outside of the student's control, such as food insecurity, homelessness, needing childcare, just barriers that they just can't do about. So it definitely affects their success at Missouri State. And we have also found that sometimes it's very difficult for these students to talk about these barriers to their advisor. So we just feel that it would be nice to be more aware of some of those student services that we have on campus. And we just feel that this may allow for a more enhanced conversation with these students when talking about these specific barriers. So today we do have some great speakers who will discuss some of their student services. First, we'll hear from Cheryl Winder, who works with the Missouri Department of Social Services. Next, we'll hear from Alex Johnson, who's the Director of Community Engaged Learning and oversees the Bear Pantry. And then finally, we'll hear from Kelly Evans, who's the Associate Director in the Office of Student Financial Aid. So again, we'll listen to the speakers, talk about their student services, and then if we have time, we'll definitely have them answer some of your questions. So as mentioned before, if you can place those questions in the chat box, we'll try to get to them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl so we can get started.
All right, thank you. Yes, my name is Cheryl Winder. Can everybody hear me? Are we good? Yes, okay, thank you. I have been with the Department of Social Services for about 23 years now. I am on campus here on Fridays. I'm located inside the Center for Community Engagement, just kind of by Alex's office. I am available for walk-ins and for appointments on Fridays, and they can make appointments with me online, and I'll explain that at the end of my little presentation. But I'm available from 9 until 4. I usually try to leave campus by about 4:15 at the latest, because I'm supposed to be back in my office no later than 5 o'clock. So we know how comp time works with state employment, so they don't want us to get any of that. So they want me to leave by 4:15, so I'm not getting any extra time in. I'm going to share my screen and go over a quick little presentation that I have. And when I am sharing, I can't see the chat because of the way our computers are set up. So I will, once I stop sharing, I will be able to look at the chat and see if there's any questions. But feel free to stop me during my presentation if you have a question right then, because again, I can't see anything. So, okay, there we go. Our division does administer a number of programs that could be valuable to students, such as SNAP or food stamps, childcare, temporary assistance, and Medicaid or MoHealthNet. SNAP and food stamps are the same thing, so you'll hear them interchanged a lot. The SNAP program is intended to provide a supplemental assistance to low-income families and individuals. It's never intended to be their entire food budget for the month. It is a supplement, hence the name. Students who reside on campus and have a meal plan are not going to be eligible for the program if that meal plan covers at least 50% of their meals. If their meal plan covers less than 50% and they can provide verification of that, then we can look at that and see if we can get them some eligibility as well. They would also qualify if they live off campus and they're caring for young children, doing some work study. If they're working, there's some other criteria. We do have a few waivers right now with the public health emergency still in place. They are talking about some of those ending, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. If you see a student that you feel is having some need in not being able to get food, or they're just having some problems, even if you don't think they would qualify, send them to me. Let me make that decision. I don't want any student to go hungry. That's why I'm here on campus. That's why I do outreach, so that we can get the most benefit to the most people who need it. My theme is always, or my motto or whatever is always, when in doubt, fill it out. Let them fill out an application, bring it to me, fill it out online, come and see me, whatever it is, and let me run it, make that decision for them. Participants in the SNAP program will also be allowed access to our Skill Up program, which helps them gain skills, training, and employer connections to help them get a job or a better job. It can also help pay for some childcare costs, some transportation, some work expenses, that kind of stuff. Obviously, being students, they probably are not going to have as many work-related expenses, and they're probably not trying to find a job yet. They're trying to get through school right now, but it can help with some specified trainings and different things that they might need for school. And it can also help if they have a child. It can help with some daycare expenses, some co-pays or sliding fees, that kind of thing. Skill Up will also be able to say they were to get a job and they have a specific need for that job, for some kind of specified equipment or wardrobe or whatever it is. Skill Up can help them with that. So if they get into construction or whatever and they need steel-toed boots, Skill Up can help them with that expense if they can't afford it. So SNAP is our biggest program that we're going to run, just because the other programs aren't as advertised, for lack of a better word. But the next program will be childcare subsidy. That's the big one for some non-traditional college students. If you know, there are a lot of college students now that have children. They've came back to college. They're trying to better themselves, and they have a need for childcare. And our subsidy program can help them cover some of their childcare costs while they attend school, work, or they even right now are looking for a job. So if you have a student that has children and you see that they're having trouble getting to class on time, or they're missing a lot of school because they don't have a daycare provider, send them to me, because we can definitely look at that and see if we can't get them some subsidy to help pay for their childcare expenses. The next program that I run or assist with is temporary assistance. It is temporary assistance for needy families. It's a very, very low cash benefit for families with children in the home. While it's a modest benefit, they are allowed a lot of support services when they are approved for temporary assistance, which includes the Missouri Work Assistance Program. Our Missouri Work Assistance Program for TANF is similar to the Skill Up program for SNAP, in that it will, excuse me, it helps them to become job ready, get work experience, helps them find employment or keep employment. It provides services through partnerships with different local community agencies throughout the state. Our Missouri Work Assistance Program in this area is located at the Career Center, and they do an outstanding job of helping our participants get get job ready and get their help become self-sufficient. Mo Health Net, you'll hear it referred to as Medicaid. It does cover qualified medical expenses for individuals who meet the requirements of the program, such as people with disabilities, if they're blind or visually impaired, if they're pregnant, or once they have their baby, the newborn coverage, if they're uninsured, if they have a family. There's a whole lot of Medicaid coverage that's available now that hasn't been available previously. Because in July of 21, we approved Medicaid expansion, which is going to open up Medicaid services for the age group that was kind of in a Medicaid desert previously, age 19 to 65, who were not insured, but they didn't have children or they were not disabled. We can now, if they meet the income guidelines, we can now cover that age group as well. And they get full Medicaid. Anything that Medicaid covers, they can have it for that 19 to 65 age group. We say 19 to 65 because under 19, they're considered a child. So we would be looking at Medicaid for children. Over 65, they are considered elderly or disabled at that point, and they would be eligible for a different Medicaid program depending on resource income. Medicaid expansion is going to be the big one for our age group here on campus. If a student is insured through their parents, still though, they will not qualify for Medicaid. They can have no other type of insurance to qualify for Medicaid expansion. But if they're not insured, I want to see them because they're probably not going to meet that maximum income guideline in order to be eligible for Medicaid services. And we definitely, not only do we want to feed them, but we want to make sure that their health needs are taken care of as well. So I know there are some other community resources and different things that can help with those things, but if we can get them approved for Medicaid and leave those services for people who are not eligible for a Medicaid service in any other way, then that helps those other community providers as well. Mo Health Net is generally available only to U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents who have been here for 5 years or more. However, there are some exemptions for non-citizens, so we encourage anybody who has a need to come in and apply and let us see what we can do, especially if they're pregnant. We have emergency Medicaid for pregnant immigrants who haven't been here for 5 years. Or even if they're not a lawful permanent resident, because we want to make sure that that baby's covered and that mama has a healthy, successful delivery. So all of our programs can be applied for online. They can go to mydss.mo.gov and apply. I know that's not on here, but that I don't know how that slide has gotten removed from this, but it did. I let somebody use my PowerPoint and apparently it has gotten edited a little bit. But they can apply at mydss.mo.gov for any of our services and programs. They can mail in applications to our Jefferson City address. We use centralized mail, so all of our applications go through a centralized mail processing center in Jefferson City to get distributed to the correct processing team. They can also upload any applications or verifications that we may request for their application at mydssupload.mo.gov, or they can fax them into us as well. If you have a student that wants to make an appointment with me on campus to see me here on a Friday, they can go to the Center for Community Engagement's page and click on DSS, and it will take them to the application upload for me, or not application, the interview request upload site from me, and they will be able to pick their time, pick their preferred way of contact, whether they want to come in and see me or they just want me to give them a call on the phone. That's perfectly fine as well. They can also go to missouristate.edu/CCE, and I believe it's /DSS.htm. A whole lot of stuff. Community engagement page is probably the easiest way. I also have a QR code on my sign that's here in the lobby that they can scan, and it'll take them directly to that. I'm going to stop sharing so I can look at my chat here for a moment. Okay, give me just a second to see. Okay. So all of our programs are available to anybody. The question was, were the programs, whoops, I lost it, for undergraduate students or graduate students who also qualify? It's for anybody. Medicaid, food stamps, TANF, if they meet the eligibility, they meet the eligibility. Childcare is going to be undergraduate. If they have a degree, they're not going to be eligible for childcare while they're going to school. They would be eligible for childcare for employment or training, but not for graduate programs if they already have a degree. Anything above an associate's degree, I should preface that. So if they just have an associate's degree, they're still fine. But once they get anything above an associate's degree, childcare will only cover them for employment and training for employment, not for school. So thank you, Alex, for putting that in the chat, the link to get to me. And Kelly also, that way we can have that in the recording so people will have that. That's the only question that I see. Was there any other questions that anybody had for me? All right, perfect. I am done then. Yay, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much, Cheryl. And we'll keep watching the chat box and see if someone comes up with questions at the end. So again, I've known about your services, but I didn't know the range of services that you offer. So I think that's going to be great when students come in with some of those barriers. So
yes,
thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we have Alex is going to talk a little bit about his services as well.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be with you all today to chat about the Bear Pantry. I'll share my my screen here shortly, but I just want to give a brief overview of what the Bear Pantry is and does if you haven't heard of the resource before, and give a little history about it as well. Please feel free to throw those questions in the chat. If you've got questions that come up after our time today too, you're more than welcome to message me at alexjohnson@missouristate.edu. But the Bear Pantry is essentially a touch point for students, faculty, and staff to utilize if they might be facing food insecurity or other basic needs insecurities. So our goal is to support our bears, whether it's through food or hygiene items or school supplies or anything else like that. So the Bear Pantry started up in 2019 after folks at the university started to look at food insecurity rates amongst four-year institutions and the students attending them. The rate of food insecurity then was at about 36%. On a really big national study. And as you can imagine, the need has grown through COVID. And so we knew that Missouri State wasn't an exception to that. And then we also, are learning that food insecurity can have a big impact on students' success and persistence in college. So the Bear Pantry started up, like I said, in 2019. In about a 70 square foot space with canned goods and a couple of shelves to see if, if we could gauge whether or not students would be comfortable enough coming to a resource like that and asking for assistance. In that first year, we served about 65 students. And through the years, enormous support from our university community, student groups, our nonprofit community, has helped us to transition into a larger space. We get to share some space with the Academic Advising and Transfer Center over in University Hall, and provide more fresh items, refrigerated and frozen items as well. And this last semester, our number of people served jumped from that 65 to 730 in the fall of 2022. So we know that the word is spreading about the Bear Pantry, and unfortunately need is probably also rising as well. So we love the opportunity to get to talk with folks like you who can spread the word to the students who are coming to you and who could potentially utilize a resource like the Bear Pantry. So let me pull up my website here. And I'd just like to give you, I think that can everybody see my site? Okay, cool. I'd just like to give probably the easiest way to share with students about the pantry is to direct them toward our website. As you can see here, our mission is to provide the MSU community to access to food and other items. We're located there in the basement of University Hall, and our location and hours of operation are here as well. We are really fortunate to have support from students and volunteers, which enables us to stay open longer in the day. And then also on Wednesdays, we're able to stay open a little bit later for all faculty, staff, and students. The resource is a quote unquote, no questions asked resource. So we want to make sure that people have a space where they can hopefully feel comfortable going to find those food and hygiene items. I say it's a quote unquote, no questions asked, because we do want to gather some information from the folks who we're serving. Just basic demographic information, and that's in the form of this Bear Pantry first time user form. We like to think of it as like a Costco membership. So anyone who'd like to use to be a member of the Bear Pantry, the first step is for them to fill out this quick form. It's about 13 questions, and ask them just basic information about them. And that helps us to know what gaps that we can potentially fill with what we're distributing through the pantry, hours of operation, and things like that. So before they even come into the space, people can be directed to that first time user form and become a member. And then once they come into the space, we can give them an overview of how the resource works. So when people come into the pantry, for the first time, they'll be given a tour by one of our student volunteers, and they will see both food and non-food items in that space. So anywhere from toilet paper to Bombas socks to binders and pens and pencils to shelf stable and refrigerated items as well. So once they're a member, they can utilize the pantry as often as needed. And so our hours of operation again are there too. We also want to make sure that if students' needs fall beyond what we can provide as a resource at the Bear Pantry, we want to make sure that they can get to Cheryl and her services as well, and then other campus resources at Missouri State. So we're one cog in the machine. So down here, folks can just have a step-by-step process for utilizing the pantry. Like I said, the first thing is to fill out that first time user form. Then they can come in and shop for food and hygiene items. Everything in the space is provided free to students thanks to our donors across the university in the form of alum. And then we also have a really good partnership with Ozarks Food Harvest, where we get a lot of our items. And so if anybody wants to be a part of the pantry, we always encourage students to volunteer with us. We've got a lot of fun activities where we sort food and to make sure that it's quality and organize shelves and things like that. I've found that that's a really good way to invite students who might want to utilize the pantry but might not feel as comfortable coming into that space, or you know, there could be a negative stigma attached to utilizing a pantry. I like to invite folks to serve with us as a volunteer. And once, you know, we're able to show them the process and the space, you know, it's easier to invite them to grab some groceries on their way out too. People can make a donation to the pantry in several ways, whether it's through donating money. A lot of our student organizations lead donation drives. And then we've got some folks who are connected to our Amazon wish list, where they can send things directly to the pantry. And then I mentioned a lot of our support that we have. You know, faculty, staff, and students are huge supporters of what's going on in the pantry. You know, addressing food insecurity is a campus-wide effort. And so we're really fortunate to have all that support. We also have a team of AmeriCorps members who are also current students who are serving their time trying to build the capacity of our programs too. So, you know, as you look through our social media and our website and things, you'll see some fun activities that our team is building on, like a Friday recipe. I don't know if they've sent it out today yet, but you'll be seeing a new recipe from the pantry posted on social media. We are collaborating with offices or departments like the College of Agriculture. They are overseeing a hydroponics system down in the pantry where we're growing our own fresh greens. The Nutrition and Dietetics department has dietetic interns who spend some time with us in the pantry to make sure that students and faculty and staff are getting that education around food. And so, yeah, I'm more than happy to take questions. I will stop sharing. But if anybody has anything, I'm more than happy to find an answer.
Alex, I just wanted to reiterate, I know Dr. Kelly Wood asked before, can a student use our Bear Pantry and receive SNAP benefits? So Cheryl did say absolutely. If they are accessing the Bear Pantry, especially on a regular basis, they probably need to come see me. So that's definitely good to know. And then it looks like also Dr. Kelly Wood asked if you would be willing to share recent Bear Pantry usage data.
Absolutely, for sure. And on that first question, as part of that first time user form, we asked folks a couple of red flag questions like, are you currently experiencing homelessness, or do you think you're at risk of experiencing homelessness? And also, do you have interest in learning more about SNAP benefits? Those folks, we want to make sure to connect immediately with other resources. And so every week we go through and make sure that those people have information directly to connect with Cheryl. So yeah, that is great. I'm more than happy to share current Bear Pantry usage. Let me see here. I don't have, because we have, our numbers change pretty drastically every day. I don't have super updated info, but let me share with you what I have just compiled from last semester. Can everybody see that screen? Okay, great. So this is from the fall semester of 2022. We had close to 4,000 visits or checkouts for the pantry. 6,100 pounds of goods received. And then we're also keeping track of how the weight of purchased items. We distributed just about 28,000 pounds of goods. Let's see, those numbers have since January jumped pretty high. So we're looking right now at about 5,500 total checkouts for the academic year so far, and about 42,000 pounds of goods distributed. Our new members are folks who sign up for the pantry, but as individuals, so faculty, staff, or students. But then we also ask them if there are folks in their household that they might be serving as well. So that's what that second number reflects, are the household members. Our average age for the past few years, since we began, has been pretty consistent between 23 and 25. So we know that we're serving a non-traditional student. Mostly undergraduate. We've seen an uptick in graduate students this semester, so we're glad that we're able to get the word out to more graduate students, and hopefully those later hours of operation are helping with that. Most of our folks live off campus. A lot of times when we see on-campus students needing to utilize the pantry, it's revolving around university holidays. And then we've had, last semester, we had 11% that expressed that they are at risk of homelessness, either yes or maybe. So I'm happy to share this info and more updated info with the group as well. Yes, I've got a question in here. You've got your hand raised. Yeah, I interact with a lot of international students, and they're quite wary of taking advantage of any form of aid. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to work with you to find a way that we can decrease that barrier for them. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable in the space or like the resource isn't for them. And so there might be a unique strategy that you can share with me and my team for how we can make sure that that's possible.
Okay, well, thanks, Alex, so much for sharing. Again, if you can think of other questions, we'll look at them at the end as well. All I know is sometimes I'll have students knock on my door and ask where the Bear Pantry is. So I just love walking them down the stairs and taking them to the Bear Pantry. So I just get so excited for them to know that this resource is on campus for them. So, all right. And then finally, we are going to hear from Kelly Evans.
Hello. Okay. So I'm Kelly Evans. I'm the Associate Director here in Financial Aid. I've been here for about 14 years, and this is my 25th year in higher ed. So I've kind of seen students at every point in their process. Where we deal with them here now, and what I deal with and what Rob Moore deals with are students who have found themselves in an emergency situation or needing to register for a future semester without the ability to do so. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the Emergency Scholarship Fund, and then I'm going to touch on another couple of funds that we actually have. And kind of give you a little bit of information, what we see most often. And I've got some current numbers as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Does everybody see that okay? Okay. So the Emergency Scholarship is something that started back in 2011, and it was a result of the Joplin tornadoes. A lot of people got together and said, hey, what can we do for our students that are dealing with the after effects of this? And so partnering with the foundation, that's what came about, was this Emergency Scholarship. And back then, I think the top award that could be was like $250. So a lot has changed since then. It went up to $500 a few years ago, and then now I think it's about at $2,000, based on what our students are in need of. So you're going to see students, you're going to meet with students, you're going to see them probably a lot earlier than we are, where they are facing some sort of emergency situation. A parent has died mid-semester, and that was their source of income. That's how they were going to pay off their bill. You may see, we've seen a little bit of everything. We've seen students who are fleeing domestic violence situations. We've seen natural disasters. The flood that was kind of down on the West Plains area several years ago, that was one that we helped to address with certain students that were out there. So it's for all different types of situations. It's not one particular, but when you're seeing them, you're going to probably see them before we will. You know, they're going to come and talk to you long before they're going to work up the nerve to come into financial aid, because we seem to be intimidating, even though I really hope that we're not as intimidating. But in here on this related information, there is a link for emergency funding. And so what that will do is that will take you to see all of our emergency funding options. I'm going to talk about this emergency scholarship first. It is a one-time award. So granted, a student may receive it multiple times for different reasons. And we have had that happen a couple of times, where a student one year loses their parent. The student, this is actually a student that was here several years ago. She had lost her parent one year. The next year she lost a sibling and inherited all of her nieces and nephews. She was the person who had to raise them, and she was 19. So, you know, there are all sorts of different situations. We've had students who have come over here who are international students. Their country was fine when they left. They may have been here for a couple of years, and all of a sudden their country is in a complete lockdown, not for something like COVID, but for something like civil unrest. So we've seen some of that too, because they haven't been able to get back, or their bank funding has been frozen. We can't always do something in those situations because sometimes the need is far outside of what we can actually give them. But we do help to get them in touch with other resources if we cannot help them. So there are a few things that need to be known. They have to be in a degree program, so they can't be non-degree seeking. We cannot do it for ELI students. They do have to be in a credit-bearing degree program. They do have to have a GPA of a 2.5 or higher. They have to be meeting SAP. They do have to be full-time. That's another part of that. And these are just some kind of examples: natural disaster, fire, death of the legal guardian. They are required to use, if they are eligible for federal or state aid and they fill out their FAFSA, then they are required to use the aid that is available to them first. And the reason being is because we work with the foundation, this is all based on donations. So what is in there is what is in there, unless other people are giving to that fund. So it is kind of a finite number. So we do try to be very conscious of how we're spending that. In fact, all of our emergency funding has kind of a cap based on how many people are donating to that fund at the time. This really came into play. We used the Emergency Scholarship Fund back when COVID first started, and we were getting CARES Act funding for a lot of our students, but not all of our students. In that first round of funding, international students weren't eligible. Students who were in online programs weren't eligible. And so we actually utilized the Emergency Scholarship Fund to help supplement what the CARES Act couldn't. It did have to be by an application process. So we had to look at those situations on an individual basis. But that year, I think we gave out a little over 56,000 just from this fund. And then we had utilized another couple of funds as well to kind of supplement that to meet their needs. I think it ended up being about $150,000 between all of the different funds. We also kind of drained those funds after that. So that's kind of a little bit about the emergency scholarship fund. But if we go to just all of the emergency funding that's available, we have other forms as well. So we've got the senior degree completion grant. That is specifically for students who are going into their last year or they're in their last year and either they can't register for their last semester because maybe they've utilized all their aid, which happens. So they need to get their balance below that $2,000 threshold in order to register for their final semester. So that's a great option for them. Degree Completion Assistance Fund is another one. It's a little bit smaller. And right now I can tell you there's not a lot of money in there. So if we are gonna be awarding anything, it's probably out of a senior degree completion grant instead of what we call DCAF. We do have an emergency loan. I won't really talk about that much. We don't really utilize it. It's not as helpful as we would like it to be. And so that's one thing that Rob and I have talked about, either doing away with it or modifying it so that it's more useful. Then we have the Emergency Scholarship Fund, of course, at the bottom, and then the Director's Choice Grant, which is from an outside scholar. It's an outside scholarship and loan foundation. We have to write them a letter of recommendation. They have to kind of fill out a little bit of an application. They do have to be Missouri residents. So that is the difference with Director's Choice, since it is from an outside source. So there are some other requirements. The one thing that is important with all of these is that the student needs to come and meet with somebody first. So we can help them determine which one is going to be the best option for them. So, it may not be that senior degree completion grant is going to be the right fund. It may be that they need Director's Choice because the university funds do not get refunded to the student. Director's Choice Grant can. And so we do work with them on that to see, what are the needs? What are the real needs? Is it just paying their bill here, or is it more than that? So you can always look at this page just for reference. And then what I would always suggest is then we've got a little link over here for schedule a meeting. You can go out here and you can see every single one of us that take appointments, and you can see what type of appointments we take. So they can schedule an appointment with me. And one of mine is emergency funding conversation. And so Rob and I will both, in fact, all of our counselors will meet with students about those emergency funding conversations. So we can kind of have that deeper discussion, not through email, and we can kind of talk face to face and work out the issues and figure out, what are the real needs, because a lot of times they're in a panic. And so they're just like, I need all the things. Yes, probably, but let's figure out what we can do and then who we need to get you in touch with for other resources as well. So they can always make an appointment. You can help them make that appointment. We do them all online as far as scheduling, but we take in-person, phone, and Zoom. So whatever they're most comfortable with. So that's kind of how you schedule a meeting with one of us to go over that information. So with the emergency scholarship this year, we haven't really given out that many. We just haven't had that many applications that were eligible. So this year we've only given out 3. So we've only spent about $6,000. Over last year, we spent over $18,000. And so keep in mind, these are funds that are very limited. So like 1920, I said we gave out a little over 56,000. Generally speaking, there's probably $10,000-ish, maybe 20, depending on the year, time of year. And so we're always having to look at that. So if you ever want to, donate out of your paycheck and you want to donate to a foundation account that you think is worthy, that one is a great one that always has need. Any of those actually, emergency scholarship or the degree completion assistance fund, all of those are very, very helpful to students, but not necessarily always available just due to funding levels, since it's not something that's necessarily funded by the university. It's donor funded. That is how to refer them over to us. You can call us and talk to us about it first if you want. I am always willing to talk to you on the phone, Zoom, whatever, Teams. If you have questions, you've got a student in front of you wondering if that's going to be their best option, I'm happy to kind of walk through that and see, well, is this an option? Is this not an option? What can we look at first? So with that, I will stop sharing and I will let anybody ask questions that needs to.
And Kelly, I appreciate you going over that. I know oftentimes we all encounter students that may have financial emergencies, but it's nice to know just, hey, have them talk to you and see if they would qualify. But it's good to know that there are just some kind of funding for that. But again, I think just seeing if they would qualify, I think is the biggest thing there. So
it really is. And, they get so scared to come in and talk to us. We deal with money, we deal with the government. I get it. We are a little bit intimidating, but we don't want to be that intimidating. And so we want them to be able to come in, be able to sit down, feel comfortable and have that conversation with us.
okay, so if we have any other questions for any of the speakers, let's see. Here we have a question. I wonder, how do we as advisors can help make these resources well known without having the students self-identify their own need to extra people? And anyone can chime in.
I've helped students with things like this. And by extra people, I'm assuming like they would tell me and then need to tell other people. I've advocated, like made calls for students to kind of make sure that they're eligible and do all of those things before they've had to do that themselves. Because I think that's one of the most frustrating circumstances for students in need is we can refer them to things, but then they have to tell everybody again, and maybe they didn't qualify for this. So now they're being referred to someone else and they're like constantly having to talk a lot about it. So I try to cut out the middleman a lot and just like email first, call first, find out if it's going to work. And then I can say, okay, this is what we need to disclose. This is how you get the access that you need, so that they don't have that additional stress of doing all of that. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, Elena, I think I appreciate you sharing that information. I know there has been some discussion with us getting ready to turn over to the new My Missouri State and having those cards within My Missouri State. I wonder if there can be, or if one's already in development okay, I'm seeing Kelly with a thumbs up, so she may be able to share a little bit more, but that could be a way for students to be able to just see that information on a card in My Missouri State without having to disclose to multiple people. Kelly?
There is already a student basic needs card out there. So I would encourage you to take a look at that, and it links to Cheryl, it links to the emergency funds, it leads to the Bear Pantry. So please take a look at that and refer your students to it.
I think that goes along with someone shared if it was in a folder on Blackboard. So again, I think that would, again, kind of address just having everybody know about those resources. All right, so if we do not have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Ross.
Yeah, and Kelly, do you have, Donna asked one final question about the name of that card in the new system. Did you say like Student Success Help Card? Well, as Kelly's, I know she's looking that up now, so she'll jump on here in a minute when she's identified it. But again, I just want to thank everyone for attending today's advisor.
Can I just, again, I
Yes.
interact with a lot of international students, and I'm really concerned. I see so many of them that have got needs, and a lot of these resources don't apply to them. They don't qualify. The conditions are set to where it's either you're a permanent resident, even if you're not a US citizen, you have to have, the concern is, even when they do reach out to get this aid, somewhere down the line, they may be okay, comfortable, and there are rules for most of them that would get jobs later on in the US after they're done with their studies. Did you receive aid in any way or form while you were a student or while you did, so, and they're quite scared, really, to go through the process of providing all of this information. It's on their record, and it might it might be an adverse situation for them later on down the line. So again, I think we should be thinking about how we provide resources and help to these students. And I know there has to be some kind of vetting process, for them. But I do see genuine needs that sometimes we have to look for ways of raising funds to help these students because there are really genuine needs and there's no way for them to come to.
Okay, yes, thanks for sharing that information. Definitely a population that we absolutely need to think about on how to make sure that those basic needs are being met. So again, thank you everyone for being here for today's advisor forum. Kim, thank you for facilitating this session, and for those members of the Provost Academic Advising Council who suggested it as a topic. And of course to our panelists, Cheryl, Alex, and Kelly, thank you for the information that you shared with all of us today. I did want to mention that this advisor forum has been recorded. So if you know individuals in your area who could benefit from listening to this advisor forum and learning from it, please let them know that this video will be posted on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel, probably early to middle of next week. So again, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. I look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Bye.